Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. Before we start today's story, we would like to request you to help out our friend's new channel, Timeless Audio Tales, where he puts together some amazing stories. The link is in the description box, so please visit the channel and hit the subscribe button. Now let's start with today's story. I was 25, just finishing up my contract, when I started noticing something was off with Natalie. We'd been together for 3 years, but her behavior had become increasingly strange. I had just returned from a 2-month assignment, mentally prepared, prepared to break things off when she showed up at my place with a bright smile and a bombshell of an announcement. "I'm pregnant," she said, practically glowing. I stared at her, waiting for the inevitable punchline when none came. I swallowed hard and asked how far along. 5 weeks, she said without hesitation. I exhaled through my nose, rubbing my temples. "Natalie, do you realize what you're saying?" Her brow furrowed. "What do? You mean?" I was gone for 2 months. 5 weeks ago, I wasn't even in the same damn country." She blinked rapidly, her expression shifting. Maybe the timing's a little off." No, I cut her off. "No, the timing isn't off. You're just bad at math." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're overreacting." I crossed my arms. "No, I'm not. I'm done." "Natalie, She shook her head vehemently. "No, we're not. The baby is yours." "Then prove it." I challenged. "Paternity test. If it's mine, we'll talk about financial support and custody arrangements with lawyers." Her nostrils flared. "I don't need a damn test. I know it's yours then. You won't mind proving it." She turned red. Her voice rising. "You're a deadbeat. You got me pregnant and now you're running away." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "No, I know I'm not the father, and you know it too." Over the next few weeks, she made good on her threat. Friends, mutual acquaintances, hell, even some of my own family started whispering about how I had abandoned her. I had to keep repeating myself. I was on an assignment when she got pregnant. Simple math. But people love a scandal more than they love logic. Some people backed off when I laid out the facts. Others, less reasonable ones, started pushing the idea that regardless of biology, I should still support her. "Come on, man," said Dave, an old friend. "Even if the kid isn't yours, she needs help. You were together for 3 years." I sighed. "Dave, I spoke to a lawyer. If I offer support, that can be seen as me accepting responsibility. I'm not risking that." "That's ridiculous," he scoffed. "You think charity can be used against you in court?" "That's literally what my lawyer told me," I said. He shook his head, muttering under his breath. "Jesus, Henry, it's just the decent thing to do." "Then why don't you do it?" I asked. "If you really believe she needs help, why don't you house her?" He quickly dropped the topic. Here's a continuation from Henrik's perspective. "The situation got so bad that I had no choice but to file for a restraining order. It was the only way to keep Natalie from showing up at my doorstep, at my job, or anywhere else she thought she could corner me. Strangely enough, in all these years, she never once filed a motion for child support. At the time, I counted myself lucky. But looking back now, I almost wish she had at least. Then we would have been forced into a legal setting where the truth could come out, where a paternity test would have been mandatory, and this entire nightmare could have been put to rest. Instead, she just kept pestering me over and over. She tried to guilt me, manipulate me, and wear me down into taking responsibility for a child that wasn't mine. "You don't have to be involved," she had the nerve to say. "Once just help out, a little pay for her school, send some money. Be a decent person." I let out a bitter laugh. "You want child support, Natalie? Then get a damn paternity test." She scoffed. "I'm not going to insult Emma like that." "Then I'm not giving you a cent," I said firmly. When I kept refusing, she tried another tactic. She started getting other people involved, mutual friends, acquaintances, even my own parents. One night, my father called me Henry. He started in that slow, serious tone he used when he was trying to reason with me. "I ran into Natalie the other day." I closed my eyes and exhaled sharply. Dad, just hear me out. He said she's struggling. Emma's getting older, and kids aren't cheap. Maybe what I interrupted. Maybe I should take responsibility for a child. That isn't mine. Maybe I should let Natalie walk all over me. Have you lost your damn mind? She says. You won't even talk to her because there's nothing to talk about? My voice was tight with frustration. She won't take a paternity test. She refuses. Every time, what do you think that is? Dad, sigh, look, I just think you should be compassionate if there's even a small chance there isn't. I cut him off and I'm done with this conversation. If you and Mom keep pushing this, I will cut you both out. For 14 years, this cycle had repeated like a bad joke. I couldn't escape every 2 years. Like clockwork, my restraining order expired, and Natalie would pop up again with Emma in tow. And every time I'd say the same thing. 1, a paternity test. 2, if I'm the father, I'll take custody and set up financial support. And every time Natalie refused, she called the request and insulting as if expecting proof was some grave offense rather than basic common sense. At first, she just sent pictures, baby. Pictures then, toddler pictures, and eventually school pictures. Each one came with some manipulative message like, Emma wants to know where her daddy is, or it's not too late to do the right thing. I ignored them, but when that didn't work, she started. Showing up, I had no choice but to file for a restraining order. Fun fact in my state, a permanent restraining order lasts only 2 damn years, unless there's a violent crime involved apparently harassing someone with a baby that isn't theirs. Doesn't count, so every 2 years she came back, and every 2 years I had to go through the legal process all over again. But life moved on, even with that nuisance in the background. I found a woman who didn't play mind games, who didn't try to manipulate me into being something I wasn't. Kim, and I built a life together, we got married, we had our son Ryan, who was now 9. Kim knew all about Natalie and Emma. She'd been through the cycle with me enough times that she didn't even get upset anymore, just frustrated that the system made it so easy for Natalie to keep pulling this stunt. But this time Natalie changed the game. It was Ryan's school field trip to the zoo, and Kim and I had gone as chaperones. The kids were scattered in small groups, excitedly running between enclosures, pointing at the giraffes, the elephants, the big cats. Then a girl walked to Ryan and said, "Hi, I'm your big sister, Emma." Here's the next part from Henry's perspective. Ryan knew about stranger danger, thank God. The moment Emma approached him at the zoo and called herself his big sister, he bolted straight to a teacher. I wasn't even there when it happened. I got the call from the school while I was at work, and my stomach dropped the moment I heard. An older girl approached your son. I knew exactly what was happening. By the time I got to the zoo, the situation had already drawn. Attention, parents, teachers, and chaperone were all gathered, murmuring amongst themselves. I saw Ryan standing with his, "I'm a teacher," his little face scrunched up in confusion and fear. I crouched in front of him. "Are you okay, buddy?" she said. "She was my sister," he whispered. "She said you were her dad." I clenched my jaw. "Sheck not your sister," I said firmly. "And I am not her, Dad." I stood up facing the teachers and parents. I knew I had to explain, no matter how painful or frustrating it was, so I went through the whole story. How I had dated Natalie, how she had lied about the pregnancy, how I had demanded a paternity test. Every single time she reappeared, how she always refused. "She keeps coming back," I said, rubbing a hand down my face. Every 2 years. Like clockwork, and every 2 years I have to go to court and file another restraining order. There was a heavy silence. When I finished, most of the parents looked uncomfortable, some outright horrified. Then I sighed and muttered half to myself, "Sheck not my daughter. Sheck my naughter." A few people chuckled, albeit nervously, but once the crowd dispersed, one of the moms approached me, arms crossed. I get that Natalie was in the wrong, she said, but mocking the situation, calling that poor girl, "You're netter, that's cruel." I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. "You don't get it." I said, "You've never had to live through This 14 years of the same cycle, the same fights, the same accusations. 14 years of a woman dragging my name through the mud, trying to force me to play dad when she won't even take a damn test. 14 years of having to explain again and again that I am not this girl's father. She hesitated but held her ground. I'm just saying she's innocent in this. She didn't ask for any of this. I ran a hand through my hair. I know I admit it, but I can't help her. And if I don't make light of it, I'll lose my mind. The mom shook her head clearly, not convinced. But she didn't argue further. She just walked away, leaving me standing there in the zoo, feeling both exhausted and completely drained. And I knew without a doubt that this wouldn't be the last time. In my state, the mother has to initiate the petition to establish paternity. There's no way for a father to start the process on his own. There was a brief window when Emma was born, exactly 1 month, where I could have submitted my DNA to the state as a potential father, but back then I was too focused on getting the restraining order to think about it. And now that time has long passed, my lawyer explained it. Like this. Imagine a woman escapes from an abusive ex. She finds out after she's gone that she's pregnant. She gives birth, never puts him on the birth certificate, never files for support, and just wants to stay as far away as possible. Years later, the ex finds out about the kid and tries to use the court system to force his way back into her life. The law protects her in that situation. She can say no, and the state has to let it go. In the eyes of the family court, I am a random person. I was never legally claimed by Emma, and she was never legally claimed by me. You think the state wants every child to be claimed by a father. You think all I have to do is waltz into the courthouse, fill out one form, and boom. DNA test custody and my life back. Try this, find a random single mom, call the family court, and say you want to claim her child. See how that works out for you. It doesn't. I've lost count of how many times people have said just go to court, just demand a test, just file for custody. Like it's that easy one night after another long day of dealing with this mess. Kim sat next to me on the couch, rubbing my arm. Babe, you're grinding your teeth again, she said softly. I forced myself to unclench my jaw. Sorry, just same old? Same old. She nodded already, knowing she always knew. Did the school say anything else? I sighed. They're making a note in Ryan's file in case she shows up again. But you know how it is. Nothing's going to stop her except another ARL. Kim hesitated. Did you consider just letting them test? I turned my head slowly to look at her. You think I haven't tried? That I don't want that more than anything. She shook her head quickly. No, that's not what I meant. She sighed. I hate that this keeps happening to you. To us and to Ryan, I rubbed my temples. I know I hate it too. Kim leaned her head on my shoulder. What if you talk to another lawyer? Maybe Kim. I interrupted. I have talked to 4 lawyers. I have read every law in our state about this. The answer has never changed. I can't force a test. The mother has to petition. And Natalie never will. She was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, I just wish he'd leave us alone. Yeah, I muttered, me too. I leaned my head back against the couch, staring at the ceiling, exhausted, and tomorrow it would start all over again. If you think all I need to do is fill out one sheet of paper and this nightmare will end. Please just call a lawyer. It doesn't work that way. Natalie has long since stopped calling me a deadbeat online. I guess even she realized how ridiculous that sounded. After 14 years instead, she prefers to show up in person, always with the same question. Don't you want to meet our daughter? The last time the cops confronted her about this, she changed tactics. I just want him to be a paternal figure. She told them, her voice all soft and reasonable. Emma doesn't have a father. She just needs guidance that depends on the cops that show up. Some see right through her. Others hesitate, glancing between us. Like there must be some middle ground here. Like I'm just being stubborn. How did she find Ryan? That's what kept me up at night. 2 days after the zoo incident, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee when Kim walked in, arms crossed, So I talked to some of the moms at the school. Today, she said, her voice carefully controlled. I looked up and Kim let out a sharp breath. Natalie befriended one of them. She got the class schedule. That's how she found Ryan, and then she just dropped Emma off at the zoo like it was some kind of surprise, sibling, reunion. I clenched my jaw. Unbelievable. Kim sat across from me. We don't even know what school Emma goes to. We don't know who Natalie's friends are. We're always reacting. Always on the defensive. I rubbed my hands over my face. Yeah, and you know why my lawyer said if we push too hard, if we dig into her life, it could look like mutual contact, like I want to be involved. Kim was quiet for a moment, then shook her head. I just don't get it. If she really believed Emma was yours, why not just take the damn test? I let out a humorless laugh, because she knows Kim exhaled, leaning back in her chair. And Emma? I hesitated. Emma's been brainwashed her whole life. She believes it. She's innocent in all this. Kim studied me. And when she turns 18, I sat down my coffee and met her gaze. If she wants to find me, I'll offer her the test, and if the results say otherwise, I'll act accordingly. Kim nodded, reaching for my hand. That's fair. 2 days after the zoo incident, I got off the phone. With my attorney, we have a preliminary hearing for the new restraining order. This week, I told Kim as I set my phone down. We'll get a temporary one first, then a second hearing for a permanent order. Kim exhaled in relief and CPS. I ran a hand through my hair there, investigating Natalie and Emma's living situation. The teacher's report held a lot of weight. My lawyer thinks this might actually be a way to end the madness in family court. There's something called a guardian ad litem, he explained. Over the phone, it's a court-appointed temporary guardian who makes legal decisions for minors in these situations. If the court assigns one to Emma, we can petition them for a DNA test. I grip my phone tighter, and if they approve it, then we finally get an answer. The truth legally verified. And if it comes back negative, the court will have to acknowledge it. I exhaled, so the madness might actually have an ending. I feel like I need to explain what my relationship with Natalie was really like. All those years ago, when I got back from my 2-month assignment, I was already dead set on breaking up with her. I had rehearsed the conversation in my head a dozen times. I wasn't happy. I hadn't been for a while. Then came the bombshell. Wait. Natalie had said, grabbing my wrist before I could even get the words out. I'm pregnant. I stared at her, my whole body tensing. What? She nodded, her eyes wide, searching mine. We gonna have a baby. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't part of the plan. In fact, I doubted she was pregnant for several weeks. The last year of our relationship had been filled with red flags. Text me when you get to work. Why didn't you call me on your break? Why were you laughing with that waitress? She hated my job, hated that I had to be away for long stints, but in a way those assignments were a relief. I remember lying on my cot after a long day exhausted but at peace because I didn't have to deal with Natalie. That realization should have told me everything. And then suddenly she was pregnant when it turned out to be real. I made my stance clear: with a paternity test I will pay support, split custody and be a co-parent. I told her. But that's it. Natalie's face darkened. What do you mean? That's it. I mean, I'm not going to marry you, I said flatly. Her eyes flashed with something dangerous. You think I'd lie about this, about our baby? I think I want to make sure, I said. She shook her head, stepping back like I'd hit her. That's insulting, Henry. I folded my arms. No, it's reasonable. Her jaw clenched. There is no test, no questions. You are this baby's father and you need to step up. I exhaled, already tired of the fight. No test, no contact. Emma, poor girl, she'll either grow up believing I abandoned her, thinking she has a deadbeat dad who didn't want her, or she'll learn the truth, that her mother tried to game the system and squeeze money out of a man who wasn't her father either way. She's gonna have it to work out in therapy one day. I hate that she's caught in this. She's innocent. She doesn't deserve to be a pawn in Natalie's game. But here we are. The first 2 times Natalie broke the restraining order, she was punished accordingly. After that, she waited. She bided her time until the order expired, then showed up again, same as before, persistent, always with that same question. Do you want to meet your daughter in the past 14 years? All of our mutual friends have worked their way out of my life. I don't see her parents. She doesn't see mine. We have no all social circles in common anymore, so what does she have to lose by claiming I'm Emma's father and forcing me to take the test? Public stigma. I wouldn't be talking to her friends. She could tell them whatever the hell she could brag about how I caved. I wouldn't know, and I most likely wouldn't dispute it if I were the father. What surprises me most is that in the last 14 years, Natalie never found a father for Emma. Not a stepdad, not a boyfriend, willing to play the role, not anyone. Then again, considering the kind of toxic aura she carries, I doubt any man will sign up for that. She isn't exactly the kind of woman who inspires long-term commitment, and yet despite all these years, she's still fixated on me. I was scrolling through my phone when the first call came in. Hey man, what the hell is going on? My old college buddy Mark sounded equal parts concerned and pissed. I frowned. What are you talking about? You haven't seen it, dude? There's a TikTok video blowing up some girl calling you a deadbeat dad. My stomach twisted. What? She put up your pictures, man. She even called your son some messed up names. It's bad. I barely heard the rest of what he said as I hung up and opened the app. It didn't take long to find it. There was my face plastered in the background with bold text overlaying the screen meat. My deadbeat dad who abandoned me. And there was Emma. I barely recognized her. She was a teenager now, eyes blazing with anger, spitting words that weren't hers. No, this wasn't her. This was Natalie's doing. And then I saw it, Natalie in the background, smiling, laughing, encouraging her daughter as she hurled slurs at my son, Ryan, words I would rather not repeat. My hands tightened into fists. It didn't take long before the fallout started. I was called into HR the next morning. Henry, this is serious, my manager said, folding his hands on the desk. We've been flooded with complaints, and we need you to take an indefinite leave while this gets sorted out. Complaints? I asked. Barely holding on to my patience, people are saying you abandoned your daughter, that you've been refusing to take responsibility. Sheck's not my daughter, the words came out sharp, firm. He sighed. Look, I'm not here to judge, but this is getting attention, and until things cool down, we need you to step back. I left the office, my head pounding. My phone was filled with missed calls and messages, friends, acquaintances, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. I had to keep explaining, over and over. No, I'm not Emma's father. Yes, I've offered a DNA test. No, she refuses to take it. But this time Natalie had gone too far. She wasn't just harassing me anymore. She was actively trying to destroy my reputation, my career, my life. I call my lawyer. She's trying to slander me. I told him, and now she's dragging my son into it. There was a pause on the other end, then a calm, measured voice. All right, we file a motion leadin. Take this to court. And so the case went to court soon. Walking into that courtroom, I could already tell the judge wasn't in the best mood. His expression was tight, I scanning the documents in front of him, before lifting his gaze to me like I was already guilty of something that was fine. I'd been dealing with this kind of bias since the beginning. My lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, stood up with the same calm confidence he always had. Your Honor, we are asking for one simple thing, a DNA test. If the results confirm that my client Henry is Emma's father, he is willing to issue a public apology and fulfill his legal and moral responsibilities, including child support. However, if the test proves that he is not the father, then Miss Natalie and her daughter must publicly retract their claims and issue an apology for defamation. The judge leaned back, exhaling heavily. Then his gaze shifted to Natalie. That seems like a fair ask, he said. I turned my head just in time to see Natalie stiffen, in her seat, her fingers gripping the table. Her lips pursed like she had just swallowed something bitter. But, Your Honor, She started her voice taking on that same pleading, manipulative tone she'd always used when she didn't get her way. This is about more than just a test. This is about a child who has been abandoned and left to wonder why her father won't even acknowledge her. It's cruel to put Emma through this. The judge held up a hand, cutting her off. Miss Natalie, this is a legal proceeding, not a dramatization. He said, his voice sharp. The DNA test will confirm one simple fact. Either Mr. Henry is the father, or he is not, and I don't see any valid reason why you would refuse it, unless you already know the answer and don't want it to be proven in court. Natalie's face turned red. It's demeaning, he should just accept. No, the judge interrupted firmly. He doesn't have to accept anything without proof. She opened her mouth again, but he wasn't having it. Let me make this very clear. The judge continued, his voice taking on an edge of finality. You have two options. You agree to the DNA test, and if it confirms Mr. Henry is the father, he will provide support as required by law, or you refuse, in which case you and your daughter will need to publicly apologize and retract all claims made against him. Natalie was fuming. Now she turned toward her lawyer, whispering furiously. The judge wasn't done. There is a third option. Of course, he added, I can follow the law and proceed with this as a defamation and harassment case. If we go down that road, the DNA test will no longer be optional. It will be mandatory, and depending on those results, the consequences could be much more severe for you. Miss Natalie, her eyes widened. For the first time since this all started, she looked genuinely rattled. The weeks that followed, the tests were agonizing. I was stuck at home on indefinite leave my salary. Frozen social media had turned into a battleground. Half the people called me a deadbeat, a heartless monster who abandoned his child, while the other half backed me, praising me for standing up against online harassment. It didn't matter, though. No matter which side people were on, my name was being dragged through the mud. Natalie's friends made sure of that. They flooded my accounts with hateful messages, posting threats, insults, and all kinds of nonsense. It got so bad that I finally deactivated all my social media, but none of that compared to the moment we were back in court, waiting for the results. The judge held the official DNA report in his hands. Flipping through the pages, every second that passed felt like an eternity. My lawyer sat beside me, calm as ever, but I could feel my own heart pounding in my chest. Natalie, on the other hand, sat stiffly across the room, her hands clasped tightly together. Emma was next to her, staring at the table, her expression unreadable. Finally, the judge cleared his throat. The results of the DNA test are conclusive. He adjusted his glasses and looked down at the papers again before raising his gaze to the courtroom. Henry is not the father for a moment. No one moved, no one spoke. Emma's head snapped up, her face contorted in shock. What she whispered, her voice cracking, Natalie's entire body went rigid. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Then Emma turned toward her mother, her eyes filling with angry tears. You lie to me! Natalie flinched. Emma! Before she could get another word out. Emma lunged. At her, you lied to me. She screamed, her fists pounding against Natalie's arms, her chest whatever she could reach. You made me look stupid. You made me hate him. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, murmurs, and the sound of shuffling feet filled the space as two officers rushed in, grabbing Emma by the arms to pull her away from her mother. Let me go! Emma shrieked, struggling against them. She lied. She lied to everyone. Natalie sat, frozen, her face pale. The judge slammed his gavel order. He commanded, his voice sharp. The room slowly quieted, but Emma was still sobbing, her body shaking with rage. The officers helped her to a seat on the other side of the room, keeping a close eye on her. I sat there watching it all unfold. The judge turned to Natalie. Well, Miss Natalie, he said, do you still want to go ahead with the lawsuit, or do you want to issue an apology after some back and forth? My lawyer and I agreed that we would drop the lawsuit on one condition. Natalie and Emma had to issue a public apology. It wasn't about pride or revenge. It was about setting the record straight. So outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters and cameras, they did exactly that. Natalie, standing stiffly, barely able to look at the crowd, muttered out a statement about how mistakes were made, about how things had been said that shouldn't have been. It was a pathetic excuse for an apology, but it was an admission of guilt. Nonetheless, Emma, on the other hand, looked genuinely ashamed. Her voice was small, but clear when she said, "I'm sorry for everything. I believe my mom without question, and I see now that I shouldn't have." I watched her as she spoke, and for the first time I didn't see a kid trying to ruin my life. I just saw a confused girl who had been fed lies her entire life after the case was officially dropped. I met with her in private. She looked nervous, hesitant, but when she spoke, her voice was sincere. "I'm really sorry," she said again, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. I thought you just abandoned me." That's what she told me. I never thought to question it. I sighed, running a hand over my face before meeting her gaze. "I get it," I said. "You had no reason not to believe your mom. I would have probably done the same if I were in your place." She looked down at her hands, gripping them tightly. "I don't even know who my real dad is," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I don't know anything." I didn't know what to say to that. What could I say? "I hope you find the answers you're looking for," I finally told her, "and I hope you find peace." She nodded, wiping at her face quickly as if embarrassed to be crying. Then, without another word, she walked away the next day. I got a call from my office. "We're reinstating you," my HR manager said. "Come back in tomorrow." Just like that, the nightmare was over. I had lost money, time, and my reputation had taken a serious hit. But I had finally cut the last thread. Natalie had wrapped around my life. I was free. But then a few weeks later I got another call. "Did you hear my lawyer said here what Emma ran away and is now in a foster home?" I felt my stomach drop. What CPS got involved, apparently the conditions in Natalie's home were terrible. They've been investigating her for a while, and when Emma ran away they put a SP spotlight on everything. They finally found her, and she's been placed in a foster home. Natalie disappeared. No one knew where she went, and honestly, I didn't care. She had burned every bridge, lied, manipulated, and destroyed whatever life she had left. Emma was in the system now, and while a part of me felt bad for her, I reminded myself that she wasn't my responsibility. I had done nothing to deserve what happened, and now I was finally free. So I did what I should have done years ago. I focused on my own life right now as I sit back on a lounge chair, sipping a cold drink with the ocean breeze hitting my face. I feel a peace I haven't felt in years. The stress, the legal battles, the public humiliation. It's all in the past. Now Bali is beautiful. The sand is soft beneath my feet. The food is incredible. And most importantly, I'm here with the people who actually matter. My wife, my son, and the life I built that no one, not Natalie, not Emma, not social media can take away from me. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe again. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.